thank you, Frank. Let's first introduce myself. My name is Adalberto. I'm from Sao Paulo, and it's a pleasure for me to be the first one to start here. We have today great speakers from different places of Brazil. We have André coming from the Northeast. André is a very well-known environmentalist from a long history in Salvador. Used to be the Secretary of Environment, now a city councilor from the Green Party, has been doing a lot of really good things there. Andrea, acting as Secretary of Environment now in Campinas too. She used to be also the Secretary 2 years ago. Also works on ANAMA, which is the National Association of Secretaries of Environment. Renata Falzoni is one of the most important, at least for sure, the most well-recognized bicycle activist of Brazil. Also in the last election in Sao Paulo, she had a really good voting for city councilor, got us the first spare to get into, had some time at the city councilor this year. So it's also great to hear a little bit from her and all the actions that she has been doing. And also Bruno, also from Sao Paulo. Bruno has been a leader on all this renewable on politics movements with Acredito and many other areas, working also in the city. So it will also be great to listen from her. So I will be the first one to share. Let me just share my screen here, sorry. Okay, can you all see my screen? Well, I hope so. So basically, I will just briefly talk a little bit about climate change, what's going on in Brazil, just as an introduction. Because Brazil has a national plan that was approved back in 2010, 10 years ago, a climate change national plan. At that time, they had some targets, which were to reduce between 36, 39% as a business as usual. And more recently, during Brazilian NDC, during the COP in Paris, Brazilian government made some good announcements and bold announcements in different areas, from biofuel to energy to forest deforestation reduction. And as we joke here in Brazil, the paper accepts everything. So our targets.
Adalberto, we're not seeing the presentation. We're seeing the slides overview, all the slides.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Let me try again. E agora?
Yes, it's okay.
Okay now? So yeah, basically, this is just to show a little bit about Brazilian NDCs, some of the targets that our government has committed, which when you look at the reality of Brazilian emission, they're very easy to be achieved. Even if we don't do too much, we'll be achieving, because they compare with a baseline on a period where Brazil has had a huge deforestation. And so the numbers of our emission were really high back in the beginning of the 2000s. So at least we have an NDC, we have targets. We all know that Brazilian federal government right now is not a very environmentalist government. Environment, unfortunately, has become a secondary policy. And we have seen some of the numbers of deforestation and everything just increasing like crazy in the last 2 to 3 years. But at least Brazil has targets. Brazil has, NDCs that have somehow already put it some vision for the future. And when we look at the profile, this was the yearly estimates of emission done by the Brazilian government, the Minister of Science and Technology. So back in 2016, after we commit during COP in Paris, you see there was a big reduction of deforestation on these peaks here in the middle with the green. So emission from Brazil kind of got a little bit stabilized between 2013, 2016. And we see on the right that all the targets, majority of the targets, will be very easy to be achieved, because as they were comparing to a baseline, which was much higher emission, the first one on land use, it fell down a lot. So even if deforestation more than double or triple, will also be inside the targets that the government has announced. On the energy sector, it was going up, but then we had a very big economic crisis in 2015, 2016, as the commodities market fell down. So emissions fell a little bit, but then they went up again. So in the total, even if Brazil didn't do much, and we haven't done much, we would fulfill our targets just because our targets were so easy. And just as a comparison, look here, 2020, how much land use, so deforestation, has increased in the share. It's back to almost 50% as it used to be in other periods in the past. Basically, Brazil, and we hear this often from Brazilian government, they say, oh, we have such a clean energy matrix, you know, we have a renewable energy all over the Brazilian sector, so it's okay for us to emit more. This is something we listen a lot, and somehow it's true. If you see, just hydro is 60%, wind now is 11, solar coming to 3 plus 5 of DG. So it's true, Brazilian energy matrix, it's good, it's clean. And if you see on the top right, our emissions came to a peak also on the energy sector back in 2015, and then it went down slowly until now, basically because of the economic crisis, which made, of course, industry to reduce consumption, also a little bit less pressure over hydro plants. But then 2021 was different because of climate change, extreme weather events. This last year was one of the biggest draws we ever had. So there was lack of water in the reservoir. So it was a big problem. And then on the bottom right, you see consumption of fuel, fossil fuels. Diesel is the one that really went up and kind of stabilized on the top. Gasoline and ethanol kind of increasing, gasoline much more. Ethanol, which we consider to be a renewable fuel, only represents 20% of consumption. So majority, 80% of our liquid fuels are still carbon, high carbon emitters. And even if you see last year, what was the expansion of our electrical energy system, you see that renewables are still the number one. So solar DG, which, you know, the government doesn't do too much, the legislation is there, so was 4 giga there. Like André has a solar system in his house, I have here in my house. There is more than 1 million Brazilian people already having solar systems. Wind was top one. Fossil fuels, so thermoelectrics, 1.7. This number should not even be here. It should be all solar, the other 1.3 giga, because solar was winning all the bids. However, we know that politics in Brazil is not always that easy, and they canceled the bids for solar, and they bought thermoelectrics with natural gas, importing from the shale gas in the US. Well, we don't want to get into too much of this story. But you see that also biomass and hydro, so the expansion was okay, and especially solar, because if you consider all the expansion on centralized products and distributed generation, you can see here on the bottom right that the part which is dark blue, purple, more purple than blue, 8 giga just last year, we reached it with distributed generation. So Brazil is back on the top 10 countries in solar. This is really good. And hopefully we'll continue to grow because, well, as everybody imagines, Brazil has sun, a lot of sun everywhere. The worst place of solar generation in Brazil, in the south, is better than the better place in Germany. And we always hear these numbers. So, of course, solar is the cheapest. It costs 1/3 of hydro plants. 10 times less than the thermoelectrics with diesel or coal that they're trying to open. So it makes sense. Economically, it makes sense. And even I put it this graphic, I know it's very complicated. I don't want everybody to get into, but it's from ANEL, the energy utility. I just want to see this year, what was happening in construction. And you see that majority of the projects that didn't start building are still solar. The ones that are in construction are solar, UFV, and wind, the blue one, EOL. So it's fine, you know, the future as it's coming should be wind and solar. So Brazil is possible going to remain a very clean energy matrix, not because the federal government is trying to do something on that direction, just because it makes sense economically. And even if you see this year in operation, they increased to 25% thermoelectrics, which didn't make too much sense, but because the rains were not coming, okay, maybe then we accept it. Then, when we see last year, what was really happening in the emissions, let's remember 2010 when we issued the PNMC, the National Climate Change Plan of Brazil. You see that some sectors are going better, some are worse. So energy fell down 4.5% 2020 compared to 2019, the first year of the pandemic. Agro livestock increased 2.5%, industry kind of stable, waste 1.8%, then land use just last year increased 24%, which made land use deforestation to come from 41% of the total in 2019 to 46% of the total last year, 2020. And this year, because of the increase of deforestation, for sure, land use is more than 50%. So what we see is that last year, 2020, although GDP fell down 4%, Brazilian emission was up 9%. So the whole world reduced CO2 emissions equivalent in 2020 because it was the first year of COVID, the pandemic. But Brazil, no. We increased deforestation a lot. We don't want to get into too much of the details here, but you probably heard many times that deforestation is not a public policy issue anymore in Brazil. This became criminal investigations. We have drug dealers from cocaine and big, all the criminal associations. And right now, somehow they have even supporters in the government. So it's a very complicated situation. Even today, I was reading a news from Piauí, a magazine in Brazil. They're explaining all the exports of illegal wood to the US and how the US government and also European governments, they have been closing their eyes to the fact that all the wood coming there are illegal, you know, and how even international associations like the Wood Product Association and all these guys are doing lobby just to continue taking off our wood from the Amazon forest, and it looks like nobody's taking care of that. But well, today this is not our main topic, so I'll pass by quickly on that. But what we have seen is that really the emissions, agro-livestock increased, energy increased a little bit, but of course land use, deforestation is again the big one. And this will continue until probably we have a change in Brazilian government. Nobody has more expectation that the current president will do something. On the other hand, our former Minister of Environment, he even meets with the people that destroy the forest. He uses the federal police go there and block the illegal woods. They take out and they go there. The guy go there and take off from the federal police. So well, forget about this. But we see that Brazilian industry, Brazilian as a whole, we have a very kind of low carbon economy, a very low carbon industry, and majority of emissions from Brazil, 65% right now, are coming from agro business and livestock and other things. And if you consider the targets, since the beginning of the plan until now, we actually had a big increase, more than 20% of the emissions. So we not only didn't reduce as we planned, but we increased, as the numbers show. So the reality of Brazil now is that Brazilian emission per capita is still very, very high. We emit maybe 30%, a little bit more than 30% than the global average. But of course, when you consider the reality is, for example, Sao Paulo state, the richest and most important state, or Bahia, for my friend and dad, both of our states in Sao Paulo is 3 tons, while Bahia is 6. So we are all lower the global average. But then when we get into the Amazon region and with all the big deforestation, so Pará, Rondônia, Amazon, Mato Grosso, where agriculture and and illegal logging is increasing, of course the numbers are crazy. And one example is Rondônia, one of the states in the Northeast, where used to have a lot of Indian reserves, and now the government is taking out the Indian reserves, allowing mining, illegal mining in the Indian reserve. It's just a completely crazy environment. The emission is 70 tons in Rondônia, 4 times more than the US, which is one of the biggest in the world per capita. So just to get into a little bit more where we want, I'm the president of the Brazilian Association of Electric Vehicles. So I want to highlight a little bit of what's going on the auto sector together with the energy. And Brazil had an auto regime, gave a little bit incentives for electric, hybrid vehicles. It didn't do that much. Electric cars still pay more taxes than a normal car in Brazil. But at least what we can see is that cities are taking the lead. We have examples from Sao Paulo climate change bill, which gives a lot of incentives, all the private sector coming with an ESG agenda, other subnational governments doing their homework, like Rio, like even Salvador. Andrea will talk a little bit about this. So from one side, we don't have a federal government doing anything. But on the other side, we have mayors and governors trying to do their homework, even to be a counterpart against the federal government. So Brazil is still one of the top markets in the world. We used to be the 5th largest car market in the world. Now we fell down to 8th position on the light vehicle. In heavy duty, we are number 4. It's both of the sectors are very important for job generation. Brazil is the 3rd largest of selling used cars. So this shows how impressive and important this market is. And what we have also seen is that Brazilian companies, most of big companies from Brazil and international, they all commit somehow to, targets of carbon neutrality or to reduce this emission, to have 100% renewable by the year, this or that. So somehow the private sector is trying to do their homework just to show, to their shareholders, to show to the community that although the federal government is not doing too much, they're trying to do. And we see, especially on the electric vehicle arena, that there are many actions happening. There's the national platform, ABV, there's many, many initiatives going on. And because Brazil has such a clean energy matrix, and because we have biofuel with ethanol, which is also a renewable biofuel, our potential to reduce dramatically emissions from the energy sector, especially transportation, is huge. It's much cheaper to reduce these emissions in Brazil than it is to reduce the emissions in other places. We see that Latin America had a big increase. There's more than 2,600 buses already all over Latin America. A new phenomenon that most of these buses are coming from China now. So because Brazil has not been a big leader into the new industry, all the exports of buses to South America, which used to be from Brazilian factories, now they're coming from China. This is very worrying, especially as consider the Brazilian Association of EVs. So almost 3% of the buses in Latin America are already electric buses. We see, of course, Chile, Colombia, they're taking the lead. Brazil is a little bit behind Mexico, but at least we are seeing some efforts from different cities in Latin America to really move the electric vehicle because it reduces CO2, but it also reduces local pollutant. So Brazil right now has only 350 electric buses. It's not that much. We hope that Andre's effort in Salvador, they're trying to put a big electric bus fleet there. I hope they can do it, but at least, we have some beginning, something happening, some around 15 cities in Brazil with electric buses, small fleets, so things are moving. The World Bank made a study in Sao Paulo that showed that electric buses can reduce 60% the operational cost, reduce 50% of maintenance costs. So the economics are there. We have hundreds of studies. Right now, IFC, Inter-American Development Bank, World Resource Institute, ITDP, all these international organizations are all working in Brazil to try to deliver this. It hasn't been easy, but at least a lot of efforts trying to do it. And what we see is that at least on the city level, there has been a lot of opportunities, a lot of projects really moving. So we have examples in Campinas. Andrea, the Secretary of Environment, might talk about it. Sao Paulo, the climate change bill. We have places that are putting zero tariffs for buses like Volta Redonda, Rio, São José dos Campos, which is the first electric BRT, and Salvador, which created the biggest incentives for solar, DG, also announcements on electric buses, increasing the rail infrastructure. So good projects moving. And more, we see the cities are trying to put what we call from the sun to the wheels. São José dos Campos is an example. They put a big fleet of buses, but the city also hired a solar system to give energy to these buses, which is really nice because then we have the full emission, zero emission complete cycle. Infrastructure for electric vehicle has been increasing, not only in Brazil, in Latin America. I think we have already good resolutions that can make this sector to grow. And when we see by last year, the sales of hybrids and electrics were increasing. By 2020, they got to 1% of the share. There was a target at the Brazilian Association of EV to get close to 30,000. At the end of the year, it was even more. We got into almost 35,000 hybrid and electric sold. Brazil have hybrids with ethanol, what we call hybrid flex fuel, which is 55% of the whole market. Now it's even a little bit more. So this is really good because we believe that both of them are together. So we can look at this graphic and say, okay, it's starting, It got to 1% of the market, last year 1.7% of the market. Somehow it's increasing a little bit the battery electric vehicles. Brazil, Chile, Argentina, our neighbors here, we have the biggest lithium reserves on Earth. So we can become a huge player, make a lot of money, do green mining and solar. So it looks like there is a good opportunity for all of us. Then when we look at 2020, we were a little bit behind our neighbors like Colombia or even Costa Rica. But Brazil is the biggest market, it was growing. So last year we had a little bit increase on the share. Colombia is still in front of us in the total 7% of the market share. We are 1.7% of the market share. However, it looks like that Latin America somehow is getting into this new race for electric mobility, and because we have such a clean energy matrix, it makes a lot of sense to us. The forecast is that hybrid and electrics are going to grow all over the world. Latin America somehow is a little bit lower than the rest. Some studies from IHS, for example, say 6% only electric vehicles by 2026. I hope they're wrong. I hope this forecast is wrong. I hope it's much more than that. Even the Brazilian Auto Association makes some forecasts that, wow, the whole world is going to change. And in the US, in Europe, and China, you see that the share of battery electric vehicle and plug-in hybrid, they're going to increase by 2035. But somehow, when we see the targets of Brazilian government on the national plan of 2050, the targets are not that ambitious. This is something we have been seeing in reality. Brazil play a lot with the numbers, so they say, we don't have to reduce our emission. We are happy with ethanol, so we don't need to go to electrics and this and that. So the government has not been the big leader of this agenda. That's unfortunately our reality. But the numbers are growing. You know, there is a good ecosystem already in the Brazilian sector. We have all the energy utilities, all the automakers. There's a good ecosystem already being changed around this. Now the energy sector, there was a bill approved last year that it has to consider all the environmental benefits that all the sources of energy have. This will be really good for solar, for electric vehicles, especially because we have such a clean energy availability during the night. Our wind in Bahia, where André comes from, they're all generating millions of kilowatts during the night in Bahia, and nobody's consuming that wind energy. So we hope to put this into our cars and then reduce our emission. And when we see the outlooks for the future, Latin America is the region that benefits the most from the creation of green jobs, from the bioenergy, from solar, from wind. So Brazil should be leading this agenda because it's good for us. It creates jobs. It reduces the importation of fossil fuel, which we are not doing in Brazil. So it makes sense. But unfortunately, not everything that makes sense in Brazil becomes a reality, especially now that we have such a government that they don't even know what they're doing. So imagine Congress, the Congress without any leadership of the federal government, so they just do whatever they want, and it's just crazy, completely crazy. And also when we get into the active mobility, especially when we see, for example, the increase of electric bikes. This is a survey done by Aliança Bike, one of the most important stakeholders in Brazil, and the numbers has also grown. So although electric bikes pay more taxes in Brazil, just like electric cars pay more taxes, because the lobbies in Brazil are crazy, inefficiency lobbies are very powerful. It's completely, not acceptable, some of the things that happen, but at least the market is growing. We all feel that Brazilians are fast adopters to technology. We have a very digital economy now. So a lot of new projects coming. Renata will probably explore this. She has been a leader and one of the most important advocates for sustainable transportation in Brazil for many, many years. So I'm pretty positive that this will continue to grow and that we'll be able to continue expanding. Public transportation in Latin America has always been really strong. We all know that. Curitiba invented the bus rapid transit. Colombia expanded. We have almost all major cities in Brazil have strong policies on public transportation. Bicycle increased a lot. Most of us here are bicycle users. We use sometimes during our daily trips. So I hope that sustainable transportation somehow continues to grow. Well, thank you all for this opportunity, and let me, I see there's a lot of comments and questions here. Let me pass for the next speaker, then we'll take a look here if there is anything to reply. We get into the last session. Okay. Renata, maybe do you want to go, because I finished with the bicycle. Maybe I was a little pessimistic about our future, but it will be always good to listen to you. You're such a positive woman and really moving this agenda. So maybe it will help our international friends to see a little bit more.
It will be my honor and pleasure to be the second one, and it's going to be a very tough job once you're extremely scientific positions, which I am totally different. So what I'm going to speak now about Brazil and mobility and looking forward, sustainability, and more than that, fighting against the climate change. Well, let me put myself a share screen and I'll tell everything about it. Let us see, you help me, am I on air here? Can you guys see me?
Sim, estamos vendo. Só não está total, né, a tela.
Tá pequeno. Let us see how to window. I should put all this to front. Let me view. Okay, interview screen. Am I okay?
Agora sim. Perfect.
Okay. So my name is Renata Falzoni. I'm an architect and I'm a journalist. Although I study architecture, I am a journalist. And I've been commuting in bicycle for the past 46 years. And due to that, I became a bike video reporter. You know, I just combined riding my bicycle, filming and speaking to radios and doing my job for television and everything. So being a cyclist in Brazil means you are behaving politics. So that's the reason why I got into politics. And I became a cyclo-activist. Like, I don't know the name in English, but I do my activism riding my bicycle and being a woman in this country. So when I was a young kid, I was all in cars and I didn't really realize what the car culture means in everything, Then in a way, in the year of 1976, a bicycle got in my hands and everything changes. So I got to glimpse the cities the way they are built. Any single person that are stuck in jam, they can't feel, they can't see, they can't understand the city around because they are just with lack of possibility, rather than being stuck inside a car. And that means everything. Whenever you sit down and you try to change this culture here in Brazil, you get stuck because you have to deal with people that can only see cars when they look forward public politician, public behavior. Everything is concerned about how to put more and more cars in the cities. So as soon as I realized back in the 70s that the city, the king of the city, it's not the people, are the cars. You know, the red carpet are for the cars. And that means once I started riding my bicycle, I soon realized that what we have to do in order to change is to search for, to look for, to seek for the, as fast as possible, the human scale rescue. It's unbelievable. How can that be very transformador? Please translate it. You can transform the entire world concerning sustainability once you put all your projects looking for rescue human scale. I don't have to be huge. I have to be effective, not huge, not bigger. So there is no reason why you're supposed to ride a 2,000 car in city just to bring one person. So that's the we have to be towards. You know, if you want to save the cities, you have to rescue the transportation of walking and riding bicycle, no, active mobility, connected with public transportation, with green energy. So as soon as I started riding, I felt the empowerment that the simple act of moving yourself on your own energy means. And also, I also got direct contact with the joy of childhood. Why I'm saying all that? Because bicycle and walking are simple solution and means joy versus sedentarism. Once you start moving your body, you start thinking and you start, being the very first step for transformation. So joy versus sedentarism is the link for us to change our cities. Here in Brazil, we have 80% of the population living in cities. That means if you want to make a difference, you have to start in cities. You don't have to stop in cities, but you have to focus a lot about how to change your urban planning, the way you occupy the land, and the way you move yourselves. And I myself understand that we have to connect joy versus sedentarism and joy connected with the way you move, and promote access to the city. So mobility is much more than being in a private car. You can be walking, you can be in a bicycle, you can be skating, you can skate rolling, you can be inside a baby car. That's the way you have to understand. It's a livre arbitrio. So I myself understand that bike can save this world because can provide the internal seed for people to change their behavior, for people to understand their problems in a different way, putting themselves to feel, not to be told how it's supposed to be. Once you start riding your bicycle in the cities, you understand what's wrong with your cities. It's different than you sitting down in a classroom and the teacher saying, well, the problem is A, B. Once you ride a bicycle, you understand where the problems reside. So I myself and a bunch of people here in Brazil, we truly believe that bike can be the first seed to save this world. And of course, we understand how do you change? We have to think people. We have to think woman. We have to think children. We have to think bike. And plus, we have to be happy. And associate mobility to happiness is the clue. It's the way for you to begin changing the entire city and with safety. Why we only have like 9%, 10% of women riding bicycles in the city? Because you don't feel safe in the street. That's the way. So we have to get rid of cars, personal cars, even electric cars. I'm sorry, Adalberto. We have to be focused on putting people on public transportations, cars for little reasons. It can't be the common rule. It has to be the exception. So we have to rescue as soon as possible the human scale in our cities. So concerning all that, in the year of 2018, I am a director of movies as well, and I aired one film called Elo Perdido, O Brasil que Pedala, the missing link, Brazil, a country that rides bicycle. And it's interesting because Brazil forgot that it is a country that used to cycle a lot. We have to rescue this meaning of transportation. Well, this is a picture in the city of Santos, where we have more trips in Santos than we have in Amsterdam, and people doesn't know that. So we have, why is that? Because the ferry boat is not allowed to charge to charge, so people use the ferry boat for free, and that means 8,000 cyclists every day crossing this ferry boat. See that? It is like that in the morning and in the afternoon, 8,000 people. So what is the public policies towards that? They are trying to charge those people and not to embrace the solution and put in more and more people to ride bicycle. So it's always the public politics going against the tide. Now I don't know how do we say, contra maré, against what is the common solution. You have to promote more cyclists, not to charge them. They are willing to charge them. And it is interesting because you have a huge amount of women riding bicycles in Santos. Look at this. This is early in the morning. Lots of people. This is another city. This is Joinville. Why they still ride bicycles? Because those blue-collar workers, they have the privilege, still a privilege here in Brazil, to live close to their jobs. Here in Sao Paulo, we have 5 million passengers on public transportation that comes from the periphery of the cities. 5 million in the morning to the center, 5 million in the afternoon to where they live, like 20, 30 kilometers away. That is unsustainable because the urban planning didn't provide jobs in the periphery where they live, and don't provide homes in downtown. So why those blue collars workers still can ride for their workers, for their employees, because they have the privilege to live near where they work. This is the bicycle parking. It's like 6,000 bicycles per day, every day, just because they still live, they can still have the privilege. So here in Sao Paulo, our plano director, direct plan, planning urban laws, demands to provide home, social workers, home for not wealthy people in downtown. It is just written. It doesn't happen. It doesn't get out from what is determined by the law. It doesn't come through. We always have to struggle, not with new laws, but to take the others law, the laws that we have already struggled for from the papers. This is Rio de Janeiro. Rio de Janeiro, everyone knows Rio de Janeiro for the beaches, but very few people know that more than 6,000 trips per day in downtown are done in those tricycles. And they provide the transportation of the merchandising and all over the downtown, all over along the beaches and in the center. They are totally invisible, and they are there is no public, regard looking what they are very good to the environment. There are also people that lives upon this small enterprisement. This guy lives for the past 20 years. See how fit he is. He's saying to me in this film, sometimes some people wants to give me a motor, electrical engine to put in my bicycle. And he asks, what for? They want me to kill myself. I am in a bad shape, I am in a shape due to this bicycle. So he lives upon being the seller. It means a small enterprisement living upon a bicycle. And even in Rio de Janeiro, I bet very few people knows this is an island. It's Paquetá. There is no cars in this island. See, everything is provided, all the mobility is in bicycle. This is Sao Paulo, periferia. Sao Paulo, the only place in Sao Paulo you can see social inclusion. You can't see in social inclusion in the buses and subways or train. Not even in the cycle path. The only places in Sao Paulo where you see different social, different classes of people together in the same public space is in the cycleway. This is Faria Lima. You can see this guy in the back. He is wealthier than this one. There's an immigrant. And he's still in the same place, combining the very same public infrastructure that's provided by the bicycle, the use of bicycle. And here you see the bicicletas compartilhadas, the public sharing bicycle being used a whole lot here in the city for everyone. And this, whenever people ask me, Renata, where is the best place you have ever ridden your bicycle in the world? Well, I have ridden my bicycle in more than 30 countries in the world, and not riding just 10, 20 meters. I mean, crossing the whole country. First world countries, third world countries, fifth world countries, everywhere I've been reading. Africa, Asia, Europe, North America, Central America, islands in in Oceania, I have been riding my bicycle, and the best place ever that I rode my bicycle is here in Brazil, a small city called Afuá that stays in Ilha de Marajó, Marajós Island. Why is that? Because you are not allowed to be in a car or in a motorcycle. You are not even allowed to be in a engined bicycle. Once you take off the engine of people, you make them being as much as equal as possible. This is a place where it doesn't matter if you have a fancy shoes, it doesn't matter. You are not able to wear it. It doesn't matter if you have a fancy bicycle. There is no way to wear it. It's much better a regular common bicycle. It's the very only place in my entire life where I could see a kid, 8-year-old kid, bringing to school a 3-year-old kid without being a huge problem for the parents. It's a city where 100% of the population, 100% of the population, even kids, has the right of access of the city. And you can see a lot of women, a lot of old people, everyone, just because you don't have cars in the city. Okay, Renata, what can we do without that? You know, it's impossible. It's utopia. What we can do and what we can look for is what the city of Boa Vista, Rio Branco, I'm sorry, capital of the Acre state. They have a huge urban park, linear because it goes with the river, and it's totally free of cars. It is a 5-6 kilometer park that crosses the entire city, where you can provide a totally free of speed, free of motor cars, very, very accessible for women, for people of any age to access the city. It is not the only solution, but what we have to seek for is the rescue, the immediate rescue of human scale. You can never see such a view in any city, especially those, even though Amsterdam, you name it, you cannot give the freedom for a 7-8-year-old kid to bring a 4 or 5-year-old kid to school, like we can see in a place that is free of cars, free of engine, free of motorcycles, free of everything. So whenever you provide, this example is here in Sao Paulo, you provide a free space for a woman to bring her daughter to school. See what happens. It's a total, it's much more than against the law for you to park your car over a cycleway. It's a totally lack of citizenship, lack of concept of how you plan your city and how you rule your city. Where is the policeman to put a ticket in any one of these cars? It won't happen. So even though we struggle for our rights, even though we write good laws, we work for the best way to combat, to change the way we use the city, use the energy, you always have this culture to be changed. So that's what we are seeking for. So being this way, you can have liberty, efficiency, health, economic, access to the city, a cultural change. And all that means money. So we the cyclists think that it's very slow, but we get there. So I can, to end this, I have to thank for all my colleagues that struggle with us. Those people in Brazil are going to recognize a lot of people that we can see here. I'm not going to name those persons, but I am always very thankful for the group that gives a lot of their time to struggle for the rights of being a human being without a motor or without engine, being walking and riding bicycle, connecting to public transportation. All these drawings are from Reinaldo Berto, and these are my connections. If you would like to contact me, I hope you guys enjoyed this presentation. Thanks a whole lot, Adalberto, and everyone to be watching me, and sorry for my poorly English.
No, Renata, your English was perfect. Don't worry, and you are right. Sustainable transportation starts with active transportation, so bicycle. I agree with you. We don't want to have traffic jams of electric cars. No, the priority is public transportation, then no motorized transportation. But of course, cars are still going to be there for a while. So at least let's hope that they are lower emissions so that we can clean a little bit better our air, and and also have better quality of living in our cities. So next one, André, Bruno, Andrea, André, okay. So our city councilor from the Green Party, one of the most famous city councilors of Brazil, from the Green Party, Salvador, because we all love Salvador. Come on, a Brazilian that don't love Salvador has something wrong, So, André, please.
Can you see my presentation?
Ainda não tá full screen, tá aparecendo o ladinho ali.
E agora?
Sei, pelo menos para mim ainda não mudou.
Não?
Não, ainda dá para ver o PowerPoint.
Deixa eu tentar de novo. Peraí, deixa eu sair. Now. Não?
Ainda está aparecendo ali do ladinho, assim, mas dá para ver bem.
For me,
você não consegue pôr ali a apresentação de slide, a tela cheia?
Put it.
Depois, né?
Now. No? Not yet?
Aí. Ah, não, o pessoal está falando que sim, só o nosso que não, mas o pessoal lá está vendo.
Okay.
Maravilha. Agora sim.
Well, I'm really embarrassed because Renata said that she's English is poor, so I don't know what to say about my English. So I wrote something here, so I will read it. And I like to say hello from all Greens from all over the planet. Happy to be here in another Global Greens. I have been to Sao Paulo, to Dakar, to Liverpool, and I have to say that I have been missing our face-to-face meetings a lot. But in the context we live in, I'm glad that we are here, especially in this session with so many people I admire. And thanks to Adalberto for reminding me and invitation. Well, I'm going to take my time to talk about some initiatives that we've developed here in the local level. I live in Salvador. Salvador is the capital of the state of Bahia, a city of many contrasts. A typical Latin American city, unequal but rich. We have the second largest bay of the planet here in our territory. We have one of the lowest per capita incomes among Brazilian capitals and occupy the fourth position in terms of population, with almost 3 million inhabitants. But we've been working hard to move forward. Our city is already facing the effects of the climate change. Rains in concentrate volume and time, droughts that last much longer, it become our new normal. 2020 record the wettest period of the last years. In 2021, 3 days.
André, você está mudando os slides? Are you changing?
Oh, não mudou não, foi?
Não, ficou no primeiro.
Oh, rapaz, tá difícil, hein? Mas será que o pessoal não tá vendo?
Agora sim. Agora sim.
Então,
Agora mudou.
eu vou mostrar por aqui mesmo.
Daí vai passando para baixo, talvez.
Pronto. So, a study by Climate Central simulated what our sea would look like if the sea level continues to rise in a few years. This region in red is a very important region for our people. It is the site of the biggest religious festival in the city, one of the biggest in the country. Probably in a few years, we will need to make a maritime procession to keep the tradition. We know that the planet has been undergoing unprecedented climate change in human history. The last few years have been consistently hotter than the previous ones. We can see in this image, in this little video, how the years gotten hotter and hotter in every country in the world. In 2020, the World Economic Forum, in the edition of its Global Risk Report, listed for the first time that the biggest risks to the planet's economy focus on environmental issues, all of them related to climate emergency. Extreme climate, deficiency in climate responses, natural disasters, loss of biodiversity, man-made environmental disasters. And all these risks unfold into dozens of other risks. 2021 wasn't different. And once again, the World Economic Forum report warned of climate issues and the risk they pose to the economy. That is, even they are concerned about the climate emergency. In 2013, when we took over the government, the local government in Salvador, heading the Secretariat of Sustainability and Resilience, we set out to consolidate planning instruments. The first was a public commitment by the mayor to civil society through a platform for monitoring social environmental indicators called Sustainable Cities Platform. We developed the strategic planning for both governments with goals, deadlines, indicators, and source of funding for actions. We also had the Sustainable Development Goals as drivers as of 2016. The following year, we launched the city's resilience strategy. Well, planning and now connecting. An important part was the connection between Salvador and other cities around the world, which are also looking to mitigate and adapt to the effects of the climate emergency. And the best way to do that is through cities networks. Salvador joined C40, ICLEI, 100 resilient cities, and cities for forests, for example. And I also had to thank Adalberto, who is here with us, was part of the C40 staff when was very important in the integration of another resilient city into the network. Thanks again, Adalberto. We were the first city in Latin America to take on the Compact of Mayors for Climate and Energy, which has as it steps the assumption of the commitment itself, the development of the inventory, greenhouse gas inventory, the definition of goals, and the development of an action plan to achieve these goals. All steps Salvador has been completing. Our inventory now in its second update demonstrates how transportation is our biggest challenge, followed by energy and waste. We create the Salvador Climate Panel, inspired by the IPCC. It brings together scientists in thematic chambers to present suggestions for improving government decisions, as well as guide the government to make decisions based on scientific evidence. Our climate action plans define our climate action plan defines Salvador as an inclusive, green, blue, resilient, and low carbon city. Our main risks are landslides, heat waves, floods, droughts, rising sea levels, and proliferation of disease-causing vectors. It was a participatory process with more than 60 consultations with 1.3 thousand participations and 500 contributions. And our main goal, to have a zero carbon city in 2049, the year that our city completes 500 years of the arrival of the Portuguese for its foundation. But we also have 14 mitigation targets and 11 adaptation targets. The timeline in search of resources and partnerships involves several organizations, such as CIFORE and IDB, as well as making voluntary commitments to combat the climate emergency. But we don't wait for the plan to be ready for action. Salvador has one of the most modern climate monitoring centers in the country. There are dozens of rain gauges and radars, in addition to a team that works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the action continues throughout the year in the most vulnerable communities in a constant work to prevent climate risks and save lives. The city also started the transition of the bus fleet to a less polluting standard. We're looking for electric buses also. A study developed together with the CIFORE showed that the change of just 650 buses from Euro 2 to Euro 5, which had happened at that time, provided an increase of 2 to 8 days in the life expectancy of the Salvador population, and avoided 10 deaths, in addition to reducing emissions. Bike was another priority, Renata. We went from 17 kilometers of bicycle lanes in structure to 300, promoting many educational actions for safe transit, as in the case of this image, where bus drivers felt firsthand what is it like to cycle next to buses. At the secretariat where I worked, we promoted a benefit. Every 15 days cycling to work, 1 day off. This benefit was extended to the entire municipal government recently because of the pandemics. Well, in terms of waste, our sanitary landfill collects the methane that produces and transforms it into energy and less 8 million tons of carbon equivalent in the atmosphere. It is a certified project that trades carbon credits on the international market. We also created 90 million square meters of new urban protected areas. There were 16 new parks, including the six first marine park, in addition to renovation improvement of existing parks. Another important action was the creation of incentives for sustainable construction. The local property tax began to offer discounts for those who had sustainable technologies in this construction, operation, and maintenance of buildings, commercial or residential. It is an internationally recognized program. We plant a lot of trees, many trees, native to our biome, the Atlantic forest. The Atlantic rainforest is Salvador native biome, and with citizens. It's the most important part of this is plant trees with people, because trees are needs water, needs for you to be with them. Let me show you a small video. Let me try to put this video here. Sorry. We also create a center aimed to encouraging the search for solutions and encouraging social entrepreneurship in the city connected to the Sustainable Development Goals. Collaborate promoted in 1 year the acceleration of 40 startups, and more than 10,000 people attended the events and training promoted by the projects. It has been designed to promote maximum efficiency in construction and operation. Has solar panels, has place to get the water, the wastewater, and everything that we can put in this building. But the most important is how we accelerate startups and how we made people understand things as social entrepreneurship. And Adalberto also helped us with the solar panels of BYD. In 2019, we faced the Bolsonaro government and held even against the will of the Minister of the Environment at the time, who tried to prevent it. The Climate Week in Latin America and Caribbean, promoted by the United Nations. The event was record audience and kept the agenda under discussion in Brazil, providing the meeting of civil society, governments, and companies. In 2021, the city received an A grade for climate actions in the CDP report, another recognition for work development over the last years. So that was what I want to show, to talk. Sorry, really sorry about my English. And thank you, everybody, to the patience.
Don't worry, Andrea, your English was very good. I think everybody was able to listen. So now maybe Bruno, Andrea, who wants to go first?
Posso começar? Puedo empezar?
Sim, claro.
A moment. Puedes ver mi presentación. Yo voy a hablar en español. Permiso por hablar en español. No, I'm not speaking English very well. Es un placer estar en Global Green. Gracias, Adalberto Maluf, por la invitación. Es un honor compartir esse espaço virtual com pessoas tão ativas em la sustentabilidade em Brasil e em todo o mundo. Me chamo Andrea Struckel. Eu estou secretária municipal de Campinas. Trabalho na área ambiental hasta bastante tiempo. Campinas, la localización de Campinas se encuentra en el estado de Sao Paulo, estado muy rico. La población residente de Campinas es cerca de 1.200.000. Tiene tasa de urbanización de 98%, es muy grande. También es una ciudad principal de la región metropolitana de Campinas. Una área estratégica, económica, por tanto, tiene muchos desafíos ambientales.
Pardon me, Andrea, sorry to interrupt you. This is the tech support. I'm sorry, we don't have Spanish to English translation. Although you might be more comfortable in Spanish, would you be okay to continue in English, please?
May I to speak in Spanish in my presentation in English?
Yes, we don't have Spanish to English translation, unfortunately.
I'm sorry. I don't have in Spanish my presentation. Sorry for that. I will speak slowly in Spanish to comprehend my explanation. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem then. Do continue then, Andrea. My apologies to those listening. We will try and get some subtitles.
Sorry for that.
No, not at all. Our apologies too. Okay, do continue.
Sobre planeamento ambiental, tenemos una década de vários planeamentos sobre saneamento, sobre áreas verdes, sobre água, recursos hídricos, educação ambiental, el clima, el cambio climático, também a política de desenvolvimento ambiental e sustentável, a política municipal de meio ambiente, é uma construção para o futuro da cidade, saber o que se quer fazer com a cidade, dada sua urbanização, dada sua interferência metropolitana. Sobre a água, temos aqui diagnóstico, pronóstico. O diagnóstico é onde se produz água, los sitios, los espacios de la ciudad donde se producen las aguas, también donde se consumen las aguas, se estudió, essas interferências, e em pronóstico, então, há mapeamento de áreas estratégicas para a gestão de los recursos hídricos, donde são as áreas mais frágeis, donde o planeamento apunta para os investimentos, para as restrições de las áreas mais estratégicas ou mais críticas de água. Sobre as áreas verdes, há, então, a quantidade, a localização de las áreas verdes da cidade, onde estão os espaços especialmente ou ambientalmente protegidos, e, em pronóstico, as áreas prioritárias para a conservação e as áreas prioritárias para a recuperação. Evidentemente, tanto o planeamento de água quanto o planeamento de áreas verdes tem também o objetivo de enfrentar os cambios climáticos, e vamos ver mais adelante. Do planeamento ambiental decorrer vários programas pago por serviços ambientais, corredores ecológicos, para zona rural, para sítios rurais, parques lineares. Los corredores ecológicos têm o objetivo de la conservação de la biodiversidade, passo de animais, porque estão em áreas não habitadas. Os parques lineares são planejados para áreas urbanas, onde há equipos para a cultura, ócio, deportes, carris, bici. O objetivo é unir a plantação de árvores, dando sua função ecológica, com equipamentos que a gente pode desfrutar, portanto, com função social, humana, para as pessoas. E todos esses programas estão direcionados para a região metropolitana de Campinas. O programa reconecta, une 20 cidades conurbadas ou cercanas, que têm os mesmos objetivos de conservação, de recuperação e, evidentemente, a política de câmbio climático está aliado a essas medidas de adaptação, de mitigação. E vamos ver agora a linha de tempo das ações de Campinas em câmbio climático. Para minimizar e adaptar-se à emergência climática. Em 2013, Campinas começou a reportar as emissões de GE. Em 2015 temos um pacto de Alcade, um pacto global mundial de Alcade na área de câmbio climático, de emergência climática. Em 2017, temos o programa Reconecta na região metropolitana, com apoio do CLEI. Em 2019, fizemos um inventário de gases de GE. O 70% do fator de contaminação do ar em Campinas provém de fontes móveis, transportes, automóveis, caminhões. Em 2020, temos uma lei de adaptação de mudanças climáticas, uma política municipal. Em 2021, firmamos aliança para a ação climática e nos próximos anos pretendemos aderir a pactos como Race to Zero, Race to Resilience, Acordo Ambiental de São Paulo, Carta de Edimburgo, e também em câmbio climático temos ações em curso, temos transição à mobilidade elétrica da frota de veículos de transporte público. Atualmente, Campinas tem 13 buses elétricos em circulação, BID e uma parceira. Segundo o novo aviso de transporte, a licitação, o contrato de transporte, de serviço de transporte público, haverá 309 veículos elétricos em la nova concessão de transporte público em la ciudad, em hasta cerca de 4 anos. Também Campinas tem sistema BRT, em inglês Bus Rapid Transit. Os corredores de BRT garantem transporte público mais eficiente, ágil e de baixo carbono, evidentemente. O BRT tem 36 quilômetros de largo. Também Campinas tem Plan Ciclo, como Salvador, mais de 70 quilômetros de vias ciclistas já implantadas. O objetivo é alcançar cerca de 122 kilómetros de vías cíclicas en los próximos años, fomentando el uso de la bicicleta, como Renata Falzoni habló, com medio de transporte sostenible, integrado pelo transporte público coletivo. Também os próximos passos e ações atuais, Campinas tem uma usina verde, planta de compostaje para a produção de abono orgânico. Como Salvador, também plano de plantação de árvores, mais de 400.000 plântulas de espécies autóctonas. Também implantamos parques lineares, com objetivo de soluções basadas na natureza, importantes para minimizar eventos climáticos extremos. E próximos passos, temos, então, ações de atualização do inventário de EJ e contaminantes atmosféricos, atualização das emissões de Campinas e, possivelmente, da região metropolitana de Campinas, análises de riscos e vulnerabilidades climáticas também, planificação estratégica para a adaptação e para a resiliência, integração de los planos ambientais, verde, recursos hídricos, educação, entre outros, com a luta com o câmbio climático, com foco na resiliência urbana, através de soluções basadas na natureza, e também plano de ação climática local de Campinas, que sempre essa placa. Gracias por la atención. Adalberto tiene la palabra.
Very good, Andrea. We were able to understand. Don't worry, everything was great. So now let me pass to Bruno from Sao Paulo, also to speak a little bit about Bruno. Yeah.
Well, hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning. I don't know where you are in the world, but thank you so much for having us. It's a pleasure. I'm going to introduce myself first, so everybody knows where I'm from and what I do. So I came from the Greens, being a part of the Greens through, as Adalberto mentioned, for a political movement from youth. So from Movimento Acredito, this is how I met, everybody in Partido Verde here in Brazil, and how I engage with political in the party, in political parties. And during my mandate here as Sao Paulo Youth Secretariat, I have been more engaging in understand how and what the youth wants to be a part of the party, and how they want to do the party, and what are their projects for the future. So how they are considering. I'm not so young anymore, so I'm almost in the passing phase to give my job for another younger green. And I'm going to do my presentation because through the Partido Verde and through my engagement in the political movement, I also am current the subsecretary of Economic Development and Entrepreneurship for Microcredit here in the state of Sao Paulo. So I'm going to do just a contest of economic development that is so important to this issue from that we are going to debate. So I'm going to share my presentation with you guys. everybody can see my presentation?
Tá quase, tá? Compartilhando, mas ainda não. Almost there.
Almost.
Na verdade, não foi. Tenta de novo, Bruno. Agora sim. Yes.
Oi?
Yes.
Boa.
Agora foi.
Okay, so I'm going to do just the Brazil point of view of economic development, how I can see and how I can address basically going forward for Sao Paulo point of view, and how we as a state are going to engage and move forward, and but not just move forward, but green forward. Okay, so the core sustainability for economic development, there's a lot of frameworks and what we can considering through having a basis to address and to see how we can participate as a government, we can participate as a civil society, as a civil movement, and as just employees, or how we can address in the industries and companies. So this is basically how I'm going to show. I'm going to basically address governments, employee, and environment. Society is a very huge issue to considering just in this presentation, but I'm going to do my best here. So the government, so Brazil in this last COP26, they require to invest at least $10 billion per year in many challenges. So if you're going to say for environmentalist perspective, this is not money at all, actually. This is like a very few money to address the challenges that we have. So since sanitary issues, so infrastructure issues, for economic development, we have a formation and people who are not having access to basic education and quality education. And this is all complement in how we're going to move forward and green forward. So the current federal government, it is a very huge problem today, but we hope that next year we're going to have another president and another government with a new mentality. And we are seeing actually a few local governments like Sao Paulo, Niterói, Rio Grande do Sul, Rio de Janeiro. They are pushing more challenging goals through neutrality, to engage in society and engaging companies to a more sustainable economic development. And basically with the pandemic, we can see that governments have to be operating in new arrangements and new contracts with civic organizations and society to work to create social value for their actions. So they are not just top-down goals or top-down actions. They have to talk more with society, with industry, to understand their issues, their objectives, their challenges that they are facing, and address this with a more intersectionality parameters. And how they are engaging with civic society. So here is just a few examples how we can engage. There's like civic organizations, they are engaging with governments, with commissions to understand and evaluate the better practice, the best practice that the governments are addressing, and how they are acting to create a more sustainability government, how they are shaping their actions through a more sustainable goals, and through also fiscalization, which is very important considering the disparity and considering how we are not just greenwashing the actions and just saying that we are actually going to do instead of actually doing. And also here, this is just two examples of companies here in Brazil who are presenting to their shareholders goals to zero carbon by 2015. Some people are reducing this time, this period, having more aggressive goals, and they're pretty much having been well received by shareholders, by investors, and having more profit to them than not. Here, this is just a few secretaries of the state of Sao Paulo who went to COP26 last year and present a few programs and a few investments, not only for the state of Sao Paulo, but considering Brazil. There was a large investment for research for Amazon, and how our workforce could also be more present and more addressing of the environment in other biomes, other forests in Brazil. And from the 111 programs on the budget of Sao Paulo, 90% of them are correlated to SDG goals, which is a huge advance forward and a more green movement, considering government, society, and civic society. So we need people also, and this is pretty much the core of economic development. If you're not having qualified people, if you are not addressing wages, if you are not addressing how we are discriminations there, and I proposally put 3 women's, one from who was the representation of Brazil in ONU for environment. There's a colleague of me who is Tabata, who is from Acredito movement, and she's a deputy here in Brazil, and she's a very engaging, and she suffers from multiple attacks from a few right wings who undermine her just for being a woman. And this is Bruno also, Bruno from Rio de Janeiro. She's a secretary of youth for Rio de Janeiro, and she's very active on her activism about women's rights, about fighting against racism, which is very huge. And the more that for us to go moving forward, we need to consider youth, because it is from youth that we are going to need jobs. You have to think about jobs for this youth. This youth here in Brazil are the last employee from since always. So it's almost 30% of all of youth from 18 to 26 are not even studying or working, and this is a huge problem. And yes, when we say in Europe or in United States, if you want a Green New Deal, yes, absolutely, we need a Green New Deal, and we have to consider these people, because this is our future. So considering this is very important. Here in the state of Sao Paulo, we create a program called Novotech, which basically means that we are considering and triplicating the number of technical studies for youth, considering these new technologies, these new addressing concerning over the environmental or the new jobs, the new faces that we are coming forward. And this is basically for environment. So economic proposals considering green economy, they expect to create more than 10 to 50 million range, considering how the technologies are going to be apart, and how the formation of the new labor force are going to be able to address in this period of time. This is very important, considering that to us address all those issues, we have to have researchers, we have to have people that are working and not just researching, but actually working on these industries, on these companies, and to us convert our current matrix of every company here. We need to considering that we have to have a better and a more with more quality for the education of the youth. This is all, because I see all my fellows presenting about urban and considering a more political approach. I'm more of an economic approach, and how all of this connection to SDG and more economic value can create a more shared value for the society as a whole. And I'm also sorry very much for my English. I'm very husky for today, but I hope that everybody can have questions, and we can be part of having a conversation here. Thank you also so much.
Very good, Bruno. Your English is also really good. Don't worry. So they told us to finish at 4:45. So we still have 4 minutes. In case there is any comment or any questions. I don't know how the organizations would do it, because most of the participants are only attendees, not panelists. But if there's any extra question or something.
If anyone of the attendees would like to ask a question, just raise your hand and I'll give you the permission to speak. All right, pardon me, that's the system. Anybody like to ask a question?
Uli is asking about expectations on the election. Complicated. Well, we all hope that we have a big change, of course. Unfortunately, our current president is completely out of the curve. So a person like him should never become the president, nowhere. He got elected because of very specific context, and if you all remember, they tried to kill him, so he became a martyr, or well, at least they tried to tell us that they tried to kill him. Maybe it's not even that, but anyway, it's really complicated. Right now, there's a lot of debates. Even the Green Party is in a deep debate now to create a federation with more of the left-wingers government led by the Workers' Party with former President Lula, and also PSB, the Social Brazilian Party, which is very strong in the Northeast and also very strong in the state of Sao Paulo. So we have been weekly debates about this. We still don't have any decision. There's still a lot of things to happen, but for sure it will change. Brazilians tend to be much better than what we have seen on the normal politics right now. Brazil now, if you go to Congress, I go to Congress often, and it's just crazy. There's no leadership, there's no vision. So you have all these crazy groups doing whatever they want. It's just completely out of the mind. And Brazil is suffering a lot. We are back with more than 15 million people hungry every day. 50 million people don't even know what they're going to eat at the end of the day. So it's a horrible situation. We came back many, many years, just this last 4 years. So I hope that things change. At least that's what I guess most of our friends here will think, and I open to anybody else. We have a couple minutes more. And just to finish, thank you everybody for coming. Renata, Bruna, Andrea, André. Thank you for the Global Greens for this opportunity for us to talk a little bit about Brazil. we all know, we all understand that Brazil is a big stakeholder, a big player in the climate arena. We cannot continue to say, oh, this is not our problem, you know, it's just the rich countries have to do their homework. No, Brazil is highlight, it's already a rich country if you consider the world, so we have a lot of homework to do. So thank you everybody for the opportunity to be here.